And I and we're live. Welcome back to another episode of the eReads podcast. My name is Liz Bullard. I'm a therapist, author, and creative wellness coach. And this is my podcast where I talk with friends, authors, creatives, really about the intersection between wellness and creativity. And I cannot wait for y'all to get to meet Dianne. Just a wonderful person, does so many creative things, and I think is an inspiration to us all. And before I have Dianne introduce herself, I will just do some brief announcements. So, what do I have going on, y'all? So, book events often as we go into this fall. I believe there's two for the month of July. So, make sure to check out the website to see if I'm coming to a city near you. Um, I think that's it. I had thought of something before and I should have wrote it down, but in Liz fashion, I didn't. And I've now forgot. Maybe I'll remember and tell y'all at the end. But Dianne, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. We actually have gotten past the heat wave here in Germany, and it's a fairly nice, cool day.
I think today's our last day. So, like, I'm just like chilling inside with the dog. He's like hiding under the bed where it's cool. So, we got one more day.
So, well, hopefully, you
Awesome.
guys at least have air conditioning.
Oh my God, thankfully, yes. So like that has been a lifesaver. Um, I had a friend who was living in Germany, and I don't, as you were saying about the heat wave, I think hot when I think of Germany, but like I'm glad to know, right, that the heat has spread everywhere. We all get to share in the love. Well, Diane, please introduce the folks so people get to know who you are.
Well, I'm Dianne Burkhardt. I am an award-winning author. I also host Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt, Book Talk podcast, and I also have Book Banter Magazine. This year, I've been doing all of this stuff for a while, but it was always just a passion project. I wasn't trying to
Yes.
make money at it. I was just doing it for fun. And this year, I actually turned it into an actual business. I filed everything with the German government and am actually trying to make a profit this year.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, please tell us more about that decision. Because I think, right, that it's such a scary moment. You decide, okay, do I stay? Is this a hobby? Is this a business? Like, what for you made you say, like, no, this is a business and I'm going to lean into it?
I was just spending so much time working on this. I mean, Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm doing podcast stuff. Wednesdays are broadcast. I'm doing tons of interviews. We've had like 259 episodes so far of the podcast, and plus the magazine. This year, it's going to be about 200 pages for this magazine. And
No. Oh my
I'm like
goodness.
the only person who does any of this stuff. It's a one person operation. I write the magazine, I do all the interviews, I do all the editing, and all the books that are coming from Burckhardt Books. I write all of those too.
Oh, okay. That's so amazing because again, there's another creative. His name is Kev on Stage, and he talks about the intensity in which he goes, like, and he's creating content and all of these things. And he's really good at saying, like, and I do most of this myself, right? Like I'm editing, I'm recording, like I'm doing this myself. And I think that's so important for people to hear because sometimes when we're afraid, we're like, well, when I have a team, I'll do a magazine. When I have a team, I'll do these interviews. And you can start now. And I'm curious about how do you are you really structured? Do you go with the flow? Like how do you get it all done?
Well, luckily for me, I have a degree in journalism. And my very first job when I was 17 years old, still a junior in high school, I worked for a magazine. I was the staff artist. I have been working for design and magazines and newspapers for decades. I started when you still had to like wax the sheets and put them on cardboard to send them to the print shop, where you had to do color separations, cutting out the little orange sticky.
Oh, so you know from scratch how to do this.
Oh, yeah. And so doing it on a computer is nothing. It's so easy when you drag and drop instead of having to cut out
Mhm.
colors and everything. It's amazing. The process is so much faster now. But I have like a full background in all of this. I mean, I started doing all of these things before they did it on computer. And
Mm.
so for me to understand layout and design and just how things work together, it's kind of second nature to me. It's actually fairly easy just because I've done it for so long. But there's so many things too that there's so many new innovations that I'm trying to keep up with that it does keep challenging me with new things.
Mm. but it sounds like it keeps you leaning in rather than away from your passion.
Oh yeah, I keep finding new programs to play with, and I love to learn. It's like I always tell people,
Mm.
if I could find a college that was close to me that had classes in English, because my German's not good for that yet, I would still be going to college just to learn new things. I love learning new stuff.
I think that's so important as an entrepreneur, as a creative, to have that spirit of learning, because it can be defeating because it changes so fast. There's always new innovation. And so if you have like that growth mindset of like, okay, what can I learn next? It can help you really navigate those challenges. So I love that.
And plus, you have to have the right mindset about failure. The way
Oh, tell
I
us.
look at it, there's no such thing as actual failure. It's a learning opportunity. I learned that's not how you do it. And
Mm-hmm.
now I just need to learn how to do it right. So that's not a failure.
Mm-hmm.
That was a learning experience.
Love that. Love that. Coming off of the learning experience of a Kickstarter, I was not funded, but to your point, like the mindset was really important. There were so many growth points within that period. And I reflect, I'm like, if I would have went in and just kept it very simple of fail or not fail, it would have felt very different. And I think, mindset is so important because again, as a creative, as an entrepreneur, there's so many things outside of our control. And so if you just have that really linear thinking, you can feel very just oppressed by the experience.
Oh yeah. And honestly though, I do admit that these are hard learned lessons for me because I was very oh gosh, I guess very I had OCD. I was diagnosed with ADHD and OCD back when I was in college. And I was so OCD about everything. I mean, it used to be a game for my employees who worked for me when I was the advertising manager at a newspaper. Everything in my office was set at right angles. They were spaced specifically, spaces apart. Everything was perfect on my desk. And my staff would come in and talk to me and just like move something slightly.
Not
And
nice.
they would bet on how long it would take me to notice and move it back because they knew it would happen. It would have to be perfect. And that's the way I was. Everything always had to be perfect. But then I had an accident at my part-time job.
Mm.
It set off a chain of events that taught me that life is not perfect and you have to learn how to roll with the punches or it's going to knock you down.
Really great segue. Please tell us about this because you have a really um, interesting condition that impacts your creative work. And so please walk us through, your journey.
I was just getting ready to finish up my second college degree because I also have a degree in forensic criminology. I wanted to work on,
What?
yeah, I studied to be a profiler. I wanted to work for the FBI or a local detective agency or something.
I'm
And
going to circle back to that when we talk about your book because there's a little sprinkling of that. Okay.
but 1 month before I graduated that degree, I was still working part-time at a bookstore. And somebody had set up a display of hardcover books because it was November. We were setting up Christmas displays. And they set up all of these coffee table books on a little bookshelf on rollers. And one of the rollers broke off. And they just propped it underneath it to keep the bookshelf up. And they had intended to go back and fix it. But they forgot about it because they got busy. And
Oh,
that night when we closed the store, it was my job to pull that bookshelf in behind the security gates. And when I pulled on it, it fell over on me.
oh no.
And they figured out that it hit me with like 250 pounds of pressure and slammed me down in a seating position on this hardwood floor that was just on concrete slab.
Oh no.
And I immediately had a headache. And it was like I had to just lay back on the floor. It was like my head was just swimming. And the assistant manager that I was working with that night, she came over. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'll be fine. Just leave me alone for a minute. I just need to breathe." And, I didn't hit my head. I didn't do anything. I just got knocked on my butt.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you didn't even hit your head. Okay.
And I had a headache the next morning when I woke up. And the headache has never gone away. It's always there. The only thing that ever changes is how bad it is.
Mm.
But I started slowly over the next few months having blurred vision and slurred speech. I started having trouble swallowing. And I was going to the doctor and I'm like, you know what? Okay, this has to have something to do with that accident. And so they changed it over to a work comp thing. And they finally did like an MRI, and they found that I had a Chiari malformation, which if you don't know what that is, which most people don't, it's a very rare condition. It's like 0.5% of the population will have it.
Oh, wow.
And you can either be born with it or it can be caused by trauma. But you have like your spinal column and you have your spinal cord in the middle. And you can see there's like plenty of room around the spinal cord for spinal fluid to flow. For people who have a Chiari malformation, there's the cerebellum that's in the base of your neck, and there's 2 little tonsils that usually stay up curled underneath in your skull whenever you have a normal brain. When you have a Chiari malformation, those tonsils hang down into your spinal column with your spinal cord. So you've got your spinal column, your spinal cord, and then you add in those tonsils, and there's no room for cerebral spinal fluid to flow between your brain and the rest of your body.
Oh, no.
And that's what had happened when I got knocked on my butt. It shoved those in there like a cork, and I wasn't getting fluids. Like my brain was starting to dehydrate. So I had to go in and have a decompression surgery where they take out part of the skull in the back of your head and part of the top vertebrae to create more room around that. And they replace it with flexible tissue that can either come from a cow, a pig, or a cadaver. And then it allowed more fluid to flow up there. But then I had another problem because I got too much fluid and my head's starting to swell up. So I developed hydrocephalus.
Wow.
But when they found out that I had the Chiari malformation, they also told me I had a syrinx, which is a pocket of fluid inside your spinal cord, and hydromyelia, which was another thing with like too much fluid building up behind. And that pressure was like pushing that fluid into the spinal cord.
So now I see how you went from 1 injury to like 7. Yeah. Oh, wow.
And so I had the ADHD and the OCD before this, then Chiari malformation, syringomyelia, hydromyelia, and then I developed hydrocephalus. And then last year I was also, my symptoms have been progressing, and I've developed nystagmus, which is when your eyes twitch and you can't get them to stay still and focus, which is a real pain when I'm doing design work.
I imagine. And, in hearing this, I imagine some people would say, I got to give up. I can't do anything. My dreams, it's all too hard. What made you keep going? I mean, you just created this business. I mean, what helped you to not just throw it all away?
What's really weird is I actually think having ADHD is a benefit in this situation, because one of the things with ADHD, you don't like it when people tell you what to do. My doctors were telling me, you're never going to work again. I'm like, watch me.
Real.
And I went back to work. They said, well, you're never going to work full time again. I'm like, okay, watch me. And I started working full time. They're like, well, you're never going to be able to lift more than like 20 pounds. I started working in a stock room and shipping and receiving, carrying 50-pound boxes all day long. It's like, so every time somebody tells me you're not going to be able to do that, I'm like, watch me.
I love that. I love it. Yeah, just thinking about that, I think sometimes we can lose our determination. And like, again, we can understand why. Like, you have people like, I've never seen this before. You can't do this. And give it a try. Give it a try, because every human is different. And like you seeing what your limit is, you seeing how far you can push yourself, because all the things that you would have never done if you would have just said, okay, that's it. And I'm just going to sit here. And so I think that's just an inspiration, just hearing how you're like, let me just see what I can do.
And I can tell you, though, there was a point, too, after my 5th brain surgery. It was my 6th total surgery, because I had 7 surgeries in 6 months. 6 of them were brain surgeries. And so it was after my 5th brain surgery, I got a MRSA staph infection in my incision site in the back of my head, and it infected my spinal fluid. So that was meningitis. And it actually killed me for a while. I mean, so I have like that whole experience too, that I really appreciate being here.
Yeah.
Even though I'm in pain every day and I have all of these challenges, I'm here. So that makes a big difference. It's like there's always an opportunity to keep doing more.
Yeah, again, like the power of mindset, right? Do you look at this as completely negative, or do you try and find the positive, not to ignore the negative, but to be able to keep going? And I think that is important, especially for folks who may be living with a chronic experience of, if you go in, and I believe there is data and science to support this. Like if you go in and you have like just this, everything's bad, it's awful, it can really shift your mood and increase anxiety and depression, rather than if you're like, okay, this is a bad day, how can I make it less bad? Or what can I do right now? That shift can really help to be able to balance everything.
Yeah. And also, too, this is one thing that I had only talked about twice. Once with a woman who is a advocate for survivors of people who had family members unalive themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And another one was with a paranormal group that I did an interview with. But actually, between like my fourth and fifth surgery, I tried to unalive myself. I got to the point where there was just so much pain and so much depression, and I didn't do any of the things. I didn't leave a note. I didn't tell anybody because I wanted my parents to be able to get my life insurance to pay off all my medical bills and everything. So I didn't give anything away. I was very calculated about this. I took just a mix of all of the narcotics and things that they had been giving me to try and make it look like an accidental overdose. And what ended up happening was I slept for 16 hours. And when I woke up, I realized one of my biggest problems at that time was sleep deprivation.
Wow.
That I was just in so much pain all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't sleep and I couldn't get a deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just messing with my mental state.
Mm-hmm.
And once I had that deep 16 hours of sleep,
Mm-hmm.
I woke up and I'm like, oh, okay, I can handle this now. I mean, it was amazing. And I started using sleeping pills to help me get better sleep from then on until things got better. But it was just amazing the clarity that I got from that moment of what was actually causing a lot of the problems with my mental state.
1000%. And I'm also hearing like the power of rest. And like sometimes we can be in seasons in our life where it's hardship after hardship after hardship after hardship, and there's no relief from the pressure. And I think that's why like people like, poo-poo self-care and stuff like that, but really thinking about caring for yourself in those moments of constant hardship so that you are able to have a break and able to get to that point of clarity. Because when you are exhausted like that, you don't need solutions. Like if someone would have been like, oh, you just need to do this. No, like it just,
they just need a good night's sleep. No, that's not it. That's not it. There's everything going on. But that was a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like I had the accident. I had to fight the company on work comp. I was getting kind of shunned at work because I filed.
Oh no. Yeah.
And I, had 7 surgeries in 6 months. And I'm Native American. My hair was down to my butt before the first surgery. And to go from that to bald. And then whenever I had the hydrocephalus, they installed a VP shunt up here, which you can see, like here's the tube.
Yeah.
And whenever I looked into the mirror after that, and I could see this big lump underneath the skin and see this on my neck, because for like the first few years, every time I looked in the mirror, that was the first thing I saw. And it made me feel like a freak.
Yeah.
And, having to be my head shaved again and again and again, I spent like almost a year with my head being repeatedly shaved and staples up the back of my head. And to keep my health insurance, because we were fighting on whether or not it was work comp, I had to go to work with fresh staples in my head.
Oh no. Yeah.
Take my insurance away. They would like prop me up at a register and I would be zoned out on drugs, just ringing people up all day long, just so I could keep my health insurance.
Wow. And I think that's another great call out of never look at someone and think, wow, everything is so perfect. You never know the journey someone has went on. You never know what someone is going through. And I think it's a great call out of be kind and patient with people because you just never know the backstory. So like, I appreciate you sharing that. And another condition that you mentioned impacts your language. Is that correct? Kind of walk us through that because you're a writer. We kind of need language and words. And so kind of walk us through this.
Yeah, well, with the Chiari malformation and the syringomyelia and the hydromyelia and the hydrocephalus, all of it affects brain function. And I actually lost a lot of my language skills. I remember one of the first times, probably like a year or two after I had recovered from the biggest part of this. My mother and I had gone to my niece's wedding, and I did a bunch of photography, and I wanted to put it in a little photo album for her. And so we stopped at a little shop, and I'm like, okay, I need to find it's that thing, it's a book, and you put pictures in it. I could not think of the words photo album.
Mm.
And I mean, it's one of those things where I knew that I knew it, but I couldn't get it out of my brain. And there's a lot of things that'll happen too. Like when I type, I will stutter. I'll like get stuck. I mean, and then he went, and then he went, and then he went, and then he went into the room. And I don't realize that I'm doing it until we go back to edits. So it's like I find these things in there all the time. And when I write, I think it's funny that people have been saying lately that if you don't use, oh, what the heck just happened?
Oh, I can still hear and see you.
Okay, my screen just shut. I think it was just I wasn't active enough and went to sleep. Now I forgot what I was saying.
When you go back and edit, we were talking about your language.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah, people say that a way to tell that somebody has used AI to write something is they don't use contractions. That's not always true. I don't use contractions when I write. And I have to actually put them in when I edit. Because when I write, it's always, will not, cannot, should not. I don't come up with can't and shouldn't and won't, those things. That all comes in editing. So if I miss that in editing, it always goes out, just the words, no contractions. That's just a weird quirk of my brain now.
Interesting. And so again, because I remember like during NaNoWriMo and things like that, part of the conversation was around AI and accessibility for folks who may struggle and how AI can help. And I think, not arguing if that's true or not, but I think you're showing how, like, with patience with yourself, you're able to navigate and understand your condition and be able to work through those things. And so, again, I think that's really hopeful for folks who maybe are like, again, like, I don't want to use, generative AI. I still want to write. How do I overcome some of these internal barriers that I have? And I think, again, listening to you, you were really like, okay, I'll catch it in editing. So rather than, again, putting that emphasis or that pressure on yourself in the beginning of put the contractions in, no, maybe editing takes a little bit longer and things like that. And I'm kind of curious, what are the other things that you do that are unique for your writing process that help you to navigate that?
Well, I will admit that I do use AI to create notes for myself because I need a lot of notes. So I'll sit there and just say out all the things that I want to put into like that chapter, and I'll have AI create a bullet point for me. And then I'll have that to the side when I write. And that is like so helpful for me.
I imagine to be able to brain dump and to see like, okay, what was the brain dump I have? I imagine, yes.
It's like I will never use it to write anything that I use for my books, right? But to just organize my own notes, it's fantastic.
I imagine. And like, again, like, I think that's so helpful for folks who like, again, like that is a lot that you're trying to overcome and shift through within your brain. And so to be able to see what you have kind of dumped, organized, like, I'm so glad like that's a help to you.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you, one of the things that I found really amusing that has happened, and it's happened a couple of times. I will think one word, but I will say a different word, and I don't hear that I'm saying a different word. Apparently, for like an entire month, I called my husband and my dog Seamus. And when I was in high school, I had a cat named Seamus. But my husband's name is Pedro, so nowhere near that. And our dog's name is Shaggy, so a little close. But apparently, I was calling them both Seamus for a whole month. And finally, my husband was like, "Why do you keep calling me Seamus? Is this some kind of joke I'm not catching?" Oh. And I'm like, "I'm not calling you Seamus. I'm calling you Pedro." And he goes, "You just said it again." And I'm like, "No, I didn't. I said Pedro." And in that moment, I heard it. And that was the weirdest feeling of disconnect from myself.
Yeah.
In my head, I think my mouth is saying Pedro, but I hear Seamus come out of my mouth. And it's actually happened with a couple of things. I still have a hard time saying the word Klingon. My husband and I are big Trekkies, and I always have to like stop and think to say Klingon because it wants to come out Vulcan.
No.
And it's like the weirdest disconnect. I find, luckily, most of this stuff I find really fascinating. I don't get embarrassed about it. I'm like, what is going on that causes that? That is so curious.
Absolutely. Like again, I love your mindset because again, like I can see how it helps you to push forward. And I'm curious, does any of this end up in your book? You know, you mentioned being, going to school for forensics and your character. Like, please just share about your book that's coming out this year, like end of this year. Has it already come out this year?
No, I'm hoping to bring it out around Halloween because it is a paranormal romance series that we're starting. I already have 7 books planned, and it's called the
Nice.
Haunted Heart series, and it's actually based on ghost hunting adventures that I went on when I was in college.
Oh,
Each story
interesting.
is based on a different place that we investigated back then. And the first one is actually the most wild investigation that we did because there was like some psychometry stuff that happened. We had weird photographs. It was a really great experience. And I'm really looking forward to bringing this story out. But plus, I have a real fascination for physics. And I made my main character, Samantha Voss, a physicist who specializes in I can't even say it,
Mhm.
electromagnetic field applications. So it's like a perfect segue for her to be able to debunk different things that are going on that are supposed to be paranormal.
Oh, that's really interesting. And this is written under a pen name, correct?
Yeah, it's really funny. If you go on my website, burckhartbooks.com, you will see 3 author photos. There's my photo, which is in color, and then Stephen Burckhardt, which is in black and white, and D.S. Stevens, which is in black and white. Those are 2 pen names for me. Any photo that you see for an author is going to be that's in black and white is a pen name for me.
Interesting. Can you share, like, was that intentional? Did it just happen? Like, what was that decision?
Well, the very first book series that I published was a historical Wild West kind of storyline. It was 7 books that I published under Stephen Burckhardt. And whenever we had moved to Europe, I was thinking, I need to find something to do over here because, my German's not good enough to do anything with my degrees. And we were living in Denmark first, and my Danish is worse than my German. So I was having a hard time finding work. So I started doing some freelance work online. And one of the things I got hired to do was to ghostwrite a Western. And I had never thought about writing Westerns, but I lived on a farm. I grew up
Yeah.
around cattle and horses and all this kind of stuff. So I thought, we'll give it a try. And it was so much fun. And my grandmother loved Westerns. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start out my first book series as Westerns. And it'll be something for Granny to read. It'll be
Yeah.
fun. But whenever I started thinking about all the problems that I was having with language skills and losing words, I was really worried about how well I could do it. So I
Mm.
decided to do it under a pen name. And I took my married last name, Burckhardt, and paired it with my maiden last name, Stevens. And I just dropped the last S and created Stephen Burckhardt. And I thought, well,
Okay, smart.
I wanted to round out the author persona a little bit more. So I asked my dad, who was an avid reader, if he would mind if I used his photo to be Stephen Burckhardt. And he was like, yes, please. That would be fantastic. He just thought it was amazing that he was going to be Stephen Burckhardt. And so I started publishing these books. There's 7 in the series. It's a cliffhanger serial where each one ends on a cliffhanger. Then the next book goes back a little bit before the cliffhanger and like shows you the ending from a different person's perspective. And then it goes on from there. And
Oh,
then,
that's fun.
yeah, it was a lot of fun to write that one. And the very final book wraps up the whole series in a nice, neat little bow. All the storylines are complete. So it's, nobody has another cliffhanger that they're waiting for another series to start.
As a cliffhanger girly, I love it. Like it takes me back to like the 90s Saturday morning cartoons and like it's like to be continued. Like I
Yes.
love a cliffhanger. And so I love that you were able to do that and to lean into that. And that gives me hope to torture readers just a little bit with the cliffhangers.
Well, I grew up on all the reruns of like The Lone Ranger. I
Mm.
love those old westerns. So that's one of the things that really brought this whole thing to life for me was thinking about those shows that I grew up with.
Oh, I love that.
But this series has a lot of personal information. And actually, the scenes in the children's home, my dad spent time in a children's home when he was little.
Mm.
And some of the things that happened to my characters actually happened to him in the children's home. And whenever people send me messages saying, oh my God, this scene made me cry, I'm like, yeah, that actually happened to my dad. And they're just
Oh,
like, oh
wow.
my God. It's like, that's why I was able to write it with such realism, is because he told me directly about this experience, how he felt, what it looked like, what it sounded like. I mean, I had a lot of information to go on to describe that moment. And
Oh,
there's just a lot of my family that, and one of the biggest things that I have trouble with is remembering names, even names I create. So for my first book series, I asked a bunch of my friends who I knew in high school if I could use their names for characters, because names that I knew before the accident, I can remember no problem. But
mm.
names that I learn now, I have a hard time remembering them. And so most of the names for characters in my first book series are people I grew up with. And there's a thank you in the acknowledgments for all of them.
Oh, I love that. And like, please tell us how can we read or get advanced copies? Like, please tell us the details.
So, well, right now, everything is still going through Amazon. I am trying to, because I need another project. I, don't have enough to do. I'm trying to develop an app where I can actually sell my own ebooks through Burckhardt Books.
Oh,
And
fun.
so everybody, and plus I want to be able to do it so that people who've been on my podcast, if they want me to hook up so that if they have like a shop where they sell their books, people can find it in my app for the podcast and go find them there wherever they sell their books.
You're just so clever. I love this. That's super smart.
So, well, one of the things that comes with being ADHD too is I hate being bored. I don't sit around and watch TV except for Friday nights when my husband and I have date night. We'll like go to the movies, or we'll go out, or we'll sit home and watch TV together. And that's like the only time during the week that I watch TV. The rest of the time I'm in here creating new things. I'm like trying to do classes to teach people how to do interviews, how to give interviews, how to prep for an interview, how to create your space. It's like a lot of people don't think about, if they have a mirror behind them that's showing the other side of the
Mm-hmm.
room. And what if, somebody's taking a shower and they walk across the hall
Mm-hmm.
and you see it back here? All of the things to really pay attention to set up your space and to prep for giving good interviews, and how to do a virtual book tour and things like that.
So that just means you have to come back and tell us all about that, or we got to collaborate on a workshop because that is so exciting.
Oh my gosh, there's so much stuff coming up, and you can find everything at burckhartbooks.com.
Awesome. And again, perfect segue. Please tell folks, like, how can they stay up to date with everything that you have going on?
Well, I do have a newsletter that goes out once a week, and it's basically about the podcast, but there is other updates about things that are coming out from Burckhardt Books and Book Banter Productions, which is what the podcast and the magazine are under. And like this year, I'm going to be going and spending the whole week at the Frankfurter Book Messe in Germany here. It is the world's largest publishing convention. They have everybody that you can think of. They have publishers, they have authors, they have people who are buying rights for books, people who are, voice actors to do audiobooks. And I'm going to be there for the whole week covering it. We're going to be doing special podcasts from there. And there's going to be a large section in this year's magazine, which is why it's going to be so big, about the Frankfurter Book Messe this year.
Awesome. And is the magazine, like, can we get it digitally? Is it just print? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is digital. It's available on my website. And I am trying this year, I am starting to bring out all of the back issues into print. And this year I'm hoping to get this issue done in print and digital the same time. But like, again, it's like, I'm the only one working on it. So I'm trying to set up my schedule so that I can get it done. And hopefully it'll definitely be out in digital in time for holiday shopping this year. And it covers
nice.
every single person who has been on our podcast this year. And there's also going to be 6 book reviews for different books from the authors from this season. I'm trying to secure a cookbook author, so there'll be recipes in there. And there's so much.
This. Okay, I am a fan of the Burckhardt brand. Okay, I'm gonna go sign up for the newsletter, y'all. I will put in the episode show notes. I was also on the Book Banter podcast, which is the announcement I forgot to say at the beginning. But I will tag that below. But I'm just so impressed with all that you do. And again, I love that. Again, that reminder of like, don't give up so easy. Keep pushing forward. Because these dreams want to be birthed. And if you don't birth these dreams, like, your body doesn't lose them. It's just like, I'm going to get more and more distressed until you listen to me. And so I love that you leaned into your passion and like you just kept creating.
Well, and just real quick, one of the reasons why I did that first book series in under a pen name was because I didn't know if I could write well anymore. I mean, I had been a journalist, I had been in broadcast, but I didn't know if I could do it anymore after all the surgeries. And I thought if I do it under a pen name and they're crap, I could just walk away and nobody will know that they're mine. My
Yeah.
first book went to awards.
Oh,
And nobody
wow.
knew that they were mine. So it's one of those things where you just have to take those chances. If you
You
need to
have
put a
to.
little safeguards in there, like doing it under a pen name so that you can walk away and not have to carry that with you if you don't want to, do it. But I can tell you, whenever I came back from that time that I died,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that I thought about when I felt myself dying was all the things that I was not brave enough to try to do.
Mm.
I didn't think one time about anything that, oh my God, that was embarrassing. Oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. None of that came to mind. The only thing that I thought about was the things I wish I had been brave enough to try that. So since that moment, I've been able to just say, I'm trying whatever I want. I'm going to do whatever I want. And if it fails, I don't care. If it goes on, wonderful.
I love that. And I think that's a great part to pause on of like, I wish I tried that. And if you had to give homework to anyone listening who just maybe is struggling with that first step, what should they do? What do you want to leave us with?
Pick one thing, just one thing that you've always wanted to do, and go do it. Because remember, even if you fail at it, all you did was learn how to do it better next time.
Mm-hmm. So good. So good. So good. Diane, please come back anytime. I can't wait to dive into, again, the Burckhardt world. And listeners, thank you for listening. And until next time.